Happy birthday!
So, yay! So when's the last time you used a GNU tool?
Oh, geez, I use them all the time.
Yeah, right now. Right. The GNU C compiler, my man,
Mhm.
right there. And I've got the GNU Emacs manual right behind me. So obviously, there's a lot of GNU in my life. And hang on, wait for it. You know when you like a sticker so much that you just have to have like the exact right, perfect place to put it,
Yes,
and it doesn't really feel right.
You don't stick it.
Yeah. You have that. I don't
You're
want to
waiting.
ruin it.
You're waiting for the moment. There it is. The GNU guy.
I don't know where to put it because I want it to be around forever. I could put it on here,
but
that could be a thing, and it could be behind me all the time.
Something will happen, and you'll say, "This is the moment. This is the time. This is the place for that," and you'll stick it there.
It's true.
You will.
You know when that will happen? When I buy a 20-pack of stickers.
Coming up in this episode, you are so far away from me. We are watching out for the browsers. A little Reverb Focus, Community, and Gen 2. Hello and welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Dan.
And I'm Leo.
Yeah. Hey,
Dan.
Yeah.
So you've been doing a little reading here lately about the sea change in the Linux ecosphere. I just made that one up. That one's totally me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long time coming. It took about a good 15 years to get the boat righted, but it looks like we're going in the right direction now, right?
Yeah, so this isn't a whole history thing, but maybe we'll get to that at some point.
I kind of want to.
Please allow me to stand up on my social soapbox here.
Oh, he did it.
I did.
Get ready. Listen up. Here it comes.
Listen, folks. Check your Wayland hate at the door, please. Nate Graham wrote this great view on Wayland, but I don't think he went far enough. I'm going to say it, folks. He did not go far enough.
It was controversial already. Okay, we're going to take this further.
So he focused a lot on I'll say on like the video and stuff like that aspects of Wayland. So here we go. One of the things I seriously dislike reading that people post out there is when someone says, I tried XYZ software some time ago and it didn't do ABC, or even worse, it broke my thing. I can never use that. All right, folks. If sometime was a little while ago, even, you might want to check it again, because as software gets developed, bugs get fixed, features get added, your past experience is probably not indicative of the current state.
I would say, like, even a month ago, if you tried Wayland a month ago.
Exactly.
You need to give it another spin, because stuff has changed.
Exactly. And I'll say that's one of the things that we try to focus on in the show when we do the history things, is to highlight that none of this stuff is stagnant and it doesn't stay the same, especially after releases of things happen. There's a lot of movement in these projects, and to think that it's like something that was 7 years ago in Wayland, because that's when it started or whatever, like, it's not the same anymore, folks. So that's my social soapbox bit. Like, make sure you're keeping up with the changes. And I'll say that's one of the great things about Nate and his blog, is he actually talks about the iterative changes every week that they're making and the bugs they're fixing. So you can see, all of that changing. And then, eventually it gets to, a production ready thing.
Wayland is that way.
It is.
Where if you tried it, I'm serious, the month ago thing.
Mhm.
If you've tried it more than a month ago, you need to try it again. If you tried it a year ago, you have no idea what Wayland's like.
Right.
And it is so much better than a year ago, than 6 months ago, than 3 months ago, than a month ago, than, and a lot of times, last week.
Right. And so here's the thing, like a lot of distros have already started to make the change. So like one of the things Nate talked about was how Fedora has this proposal for the KDE spin to go to Wayland, right? As by default. GNOME's already there. GNOME's already doing Wayland. Although there's discussion of actually even just compiling GNOME without X11, which is a little crazy,
right?
Yeah, that's a proposal too. It's not set in stone. So like all of these things, like they're really pushing Wayland to the forefront. That's kind of cool. That's the Fedora part. But think about the other distros that also kind of push Wayland too. And I will say, surprisingly, maybe to some people, Debian falls into this. Because when we ran Debian, I ran KDE Plasma version the entire time that we were testing it, and that includes the break plus 2 episodes into our season.
That's right.
I ran the Plasma session in Wayland the whole time. The whole thing. Not once did I switch into X. I mean, I might have just to make sure it was still working, but beyond that, I didn't really use it, and that's saying something. I think that's pretty awesome. But Ubuntu also, since 2204 or maybe even before that, the GNOME session has been defaulted to Wayland unless you changed it, which maybe you did. And if you've got NVIDIA, it will change it for you, right?
Well, yeah. A little safety catch,
and that's fair. NVIDIA proprietary is going to take some time to catch up to all that. Because I'm going to say it right now. This is the time for Wayland. I mean, there are bugs. I'm not going to say there's not bugs. But here's where I'm going to get into it. Some of the issues that people are bumping into are actually features. That's right. The bugs are features. Let me clarify.
You're holding it wrong.
Maybe you are. But maybe it's been done wrong all along. Because one of the biggest gripes, and I just called it a gripe, is screen capturing. Let's think about that for a minute. So, X, you want to capture something on the screen? It just, like any application, can just kind of grab that up for you. That might not be a feature, folks.
That's actually kind of, you take a step back. That's scary, man.
Yeah, no, so maybe that's not so good. Additionally, I will say input devices, output devices, kind of you name it, that all falls into the same category. Yeah, no, maybe not so great. It sounds very convenient, but that's exactly what gets you caught up. You want that convenience. It's not secure. I mean, like, security isn't convenient. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we've talked about it on this show. There's a slider. There's convenience on one side. There's security on the other. And you have to make a compromise. There is no ultimate convenience and there is no ultimate security. There is a compromise. You got to figure out where that is in the middle. And Wayland tends to fall toward,
at least by default,
the security side.
Yeah.
Right. And that means that you have to sacrifice a little bit of convenience.
Right. But things that are becoming Wayland native, as they become Wayland native, they're kind of, yes, they're secure, but yes, you can use things like OBS and whatnot to capture things on your screen because they're developing the back end that allows you to do that. And it lets you select those purposefully. It's on purpose. And that makes me feel better that not just anything can grab a hold. Like the security aspects of this, we need to be shouting that from the rooftops. And we're not doing that.
I said it in the last episode. I am a tinfoil hatter. And the ability for any app to grab the screen in X made me not feel very good about me running Linux, and it was something that I had just had to shove to the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yep, anything running in the browser, if it was crafty enough.
I know, and think about inputs and like, key capture stuff.
Exactly.
Hello, that's all your passwords and everything you typed in there. That's like there's the potential for it. Like it might not be doing key logging all the time, but like some things can do that, and that's a little uneasy for me. After all, it is probably one of the main reasons that people gravitate to Linux, right? Is security. And here we're going to throw that right out the window because we can't do the screen capturing that we want to in Zoom or something. Like, you forgot about something.
What was that whole thing about telemetry and privacy and security?
Yeah, we might have talked about that recently, huh?
But you're going to run on X, are ya?
Because here's the other thing that Nate did talk about in the blog. He did touch on this. Is it's dead, folks. They're hardly pushing on the chest now to keep it going because, I mean, if it's a real bad security flaw, they'll probably do something about it because like a lot of the same people that are doing the Wayland development type stuff we're also doing X, and so they'll probably patch something that's serious enough. I'm not let's be real, but they're not focusing on it. So there could be things that are getting missed. And that's just the harsh reality of it.
Yep. You better hope Red Hat or Canonical is willing to pay for that medium security bug in X.
Right.
To get those developers to start working on a fix for X. Because their focus is Wayland.
Absolutely, because what isn't said anywhere here really is that some of the biggest, contributors financially to, we'll say Red Hat and some of those types of projects, like enterprise-y things, they want Wayland because they're using it in their products. Think of for the automotive industry, right? You've seen the infotainment systems and whatnot that are going into those things. Some of those are Linux based. Not just spoiler alert on that. And they're using things like Pipewire and probably Wayland. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing all of that stuff. But like Google is, and as much as we love them, they're also a big proponent for the Wayland too, because I think that's like Chromebook territory right there. And they've got a pretty darn large market on that, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So they also want to go the Wayland route as well. And, the more contributions that are coming that direction, the less that you're going to see for the X. It's just, it's going away. It's a reality. It's gone.
Yep. I think, so we kind of got into it with the telemetry, but I feel like I'm being consistent by saying that with telemetry, I do think we should be sharing that with especially FOSS developers, right?
And this is why.
Yeah, this is one of those underpinning reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
But we should also be kicking the tires on Wayland. If you're not on Wayland, maybe you should be.
Mm-hmm. I think you'll find that it works for 90% of the people.
Yeah. I mean, test the apps that you normally run on Wayland.
Mm-hmm.
Run some games on Wayland. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, turn on all the telemetry things on the things that hook up to the things that run on Wayland so they can see that you're running on Wayland. Yeah. So that they know that that is a segment of people that actually want that to work. Because this is one of my biggest gripes about Wayland. And it's been forever, is that Electron runs in X Wayland. I mean, I don't know of a single Electron app. I know there are some because Chromium now does support it. But most Electron apps are pretty far back.
Yeah, they're old enough now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, that maybe they can support Wayland, but they don't. Or some of them are so old that they just don't.
Yeah, the version of Chromium that's built into that is not new enough, probably.
Right. So it runs in X Wayland, and that would normally be fine. If you're running on a 1080p screen at 14 inches or bigger, it's fine because you don't have to do any kind of scaling. But I'm on a framework which is 2K-ish in a 13-inch form factor.
Right.
And that's kind of small. So what I would like is to be able to scale it up to 150%.
Even my little 14-inch that's 1080p, some of that can be kind of small too. So I want to bump it up to like a fraction. I don't want to go like a full half or anything, but like 1.1 is kind of the magic spot for that.
Yeah. And so I have to deal with, just doing font scaling, which is usually enough.
Right.
And it works okay on the framework. But when you start pushing that font up a little bit, things start shaping weird. So Elementary does a really good job on this. But, I mean, the solution is to just fractional scale at 125 or at 150. And if that application, Electron, I'm looking at you, doesn't support that natively, it gets blurry.
Yep. No, I agree.
If you can't just double the pixels, it's blurry. And that doesn't look good. And I don't like that. But I know that Chromium supports it. So it's not really a Chromium issue. It's not really a platform issue. Yeah, it's that Discord needs to hurry up and rebase on the new version of Chromium in the Electron wrapper so that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Firefox is doing it now. In 1.18, Wayland is now starting to become the default, which is absolutely fantastic. Chromium supports it, which means that Vivaldi doesn't do it yet. But I think Brave does. I think everybody else does. And if it doesn't, then you can go in, because Chromium supports it, you can go in and force it.
Yep.
So
here's the other catch on that though too. Like you said, you want the things you want to actually read your screen, especially for the accessibility folks. There's another reason why you probably want the Wayland native application to exist, right? So that it can read those things. And accessibility isn't there as a whole probably for Wayland, and it's unfortunately it always lags behind. But the more we adopt these things, the better the experience the people that need those can have too, I feel like, because we can start working on those bugs. We can start getting that stuff fleshed out and working the way it's supposed to as we get the mass adoption. And I think we're close, because you think about some of those bigger distributions that, like I mentioned, that are doing it. I think we're gonna reach a critical mass probably. I'm gonna guess within the next year, really.
Yeah. So here's my ask: is if you're not running on Wayland and you have a system or an extra disk that you can install a system that does run on Wayland, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian. I mean, just by default, right? Like I don't need you to go like do anything special,
right?
Other than just install the system, and use it a bit, the way that you would normally use it. Do that, and if you can, file a bug.
Right.
If not, make sure you go in and turn all the telemetry things on.
Right.
So that
it'll do it for you.
Exactly. Or when an application crashes and it says, "Do you want to send the support?"
Yes.
Send it.
Yeah.
Do the little bit of things, because it is our responsibility, as is with telemetry. It is our responsibility as good FOSS users.
I'll even go as far as say consumers, Leo, because we're consuming the product. We probably should give something back, no?
Right. So if you're not throwing a $5 every now and then, just make sure the telemetry's on. Make sure that you're sharing what you can.
And if you don't want to turn the telemetry on, that's okay, I guess. But make sure you like Leo said, you're filing the bugs, or you're giving some comments, you're giving some feedback, the stuff you feel comfortable with, even. But you're giving something constructive that people can work from.
Yeah, because don't forget that FOSS is not a one-way street. And if it were, then we'd never get the features we want.
Right.
It is a conversation. It is a community. It is a thing where it's back and forth. You have to give back, even if you're not giving back code. You got to do something to make things better for everyone.
That's where I'm at. and I'll step down off my social soapbox for this one.
Yeah, I was sharing the box with you there for a little bit. So.
But, thank you for listening. This is the platform I have, and there you go.
Don't forget that you can find all of the soapy, boxy things on YouTube. On the audio, you hear it all, and you can feel it all maybe in your chest. But something that you can't see is the way that Dan looks when he says those things. It's a certain kind of special, and I love it.
I do tend to wear that on my face.
A little bit. So check us out on YouTube. Check us out, especially with the history stuff, on TILvids. And if you like the soapbox, if you want us to keep pushing the envelope, maybe throw us a buck over on patreon.com/LinuxUserSpace. Just connect with us.
All right, Leo, we've been watching the browsers tier 2, so...
all the time.
So yeah, you up the first one, I'll let you go. This is Vivaldi's Open Letter.
Yes, yeah. Before I get into that, I want to say that, did you know, I don't know exactly how it's going to flesh out, but did you know Brave has an AI bot?
Yes, and it's aptly named.
It is. I don't know how I feel about it, but...
Are you getting a kickback?
I don't think so. But if you're in Brave and you're on the beta or the nightly channels, you can talk to me?
Leo.
Yeah.
You can talk to Leo.
Leo is baked into Brave as a chatbot, and then they're going to be opening it up, and then you can, do all the chat GPT type things with it later on.
I think it's awesome. I like talking with Leo. And I think everybody else surely should as well.
I don't think you get the same soapbox.
Okay.
In the chat bot that you do in this show, but it is a Leo. So,
maybe
it's something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back to Vivaldi's letter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we gotta talk about this. Vivaldi wrote an open letter in support of the EU's DMA. Okay, so that's the European Union's Digital Markets Act. Now, this is roughly a way for the EU, which will expand. I mean, you notice the iPhone now has USB-C. The EU has a whole lot of pull. Now, I don't think it's going to come to the US except for in California, Colorado, and Connecticut, because those are the cool states, apparently, yet early. But the EU has Digital Markets Act. And this is an act that is more wide-ranging, but that doesn't really cover what Vivaldi's open letter is. So it's a way to level the digital playing field so that third-party applications can sneak on in there and actually make, which is the 20%, which is the you said it earlier, Dan. Why can't I remember this word? Where it's like the point at which you're cool.
Quick, everybody, roll the VHS tape back.
Critical mass. Critical mass.
Oh, yeah, I probably did 20% say that.
20% is critical mass for being a competitor in the big wide world of like Microsoft and Apple and stuff. 20%. Okay,
that's a fairly substantial mark.
Right. So this is a way to level the playing field so that third party competitors can reach critical mass. And Vivaldi is one of those third party competitors when you zoom out a little bit and realize that Chrome and to an extent Edge and Safari are the big players. Those are the ones, because those come pre-installed on devices. And the DMA categorizes those devices and those softwares as gatekeepers.
Right. Yep.
What happens is, imagine, as much as it might make you sick, you're installing a new Windows 11 machine. And you uncheck all of the privacy boxes, and you know that it doesn't actually do anything because...
It does little anyway, yeah.
But you do because you're like me, and you're like, ew.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the desktop, and you're like, you know what I'm going to do is install Firefox because I'm a cool kid and I like multi-account containers. So what do you have to do? You have to double click on Microsoft Edge.
You sure do.
And in that way, Microsoft Edge is a gatekeeper.
Yep.
So you got to go to getfirefox.com or go to firefox.com or mozilla.org or whatever, and you go get your browser, right? However you do that, right? And then you install it. And then what do? You have to make it your default, right?
Yeah, it doesn't do that automatically, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. So you launch Firefox and like, hey, you want me to be the default browser? And you're like, yeah, because I went and got you, man.
But then you click on the yeah, and it doesn't do actually anything. It takes you to a settings page where you actually have to change it.
Exactly. So you have to jump through hoops just to get it to do HTTP and HTTPS and for some reason locally, HTML and HTML.
Yep.
Why? But that's the question that the DMA is trying to answer. The answer to why is no.
Yeah.
That should not be the way that things are done. You should have a choice. So,
like a browser election.
ooh.
That's
all
a
right.
fancy thing,
so,
huh?
Yeah. So Vivaldi has come out in support of the DMA because the DMA specifies that you just can't have a gatekeeper like that. You have to give consumers the choice. Give them the choice of a browser.
Hey, Internet Explorer, anybody? Remember that?
Exactly. And when you choose the browser, do not force the consumers through hoops to be able to actually make it the default browser. There's one thing making it the default browser when you click on a link, but there's another to making a default browser to actually do all the things that browsers do, and Windows stands between you and your browser to prevent that.
Yeah.
And not only that, for years, well, how long has Windows 11 been out? A couple years? For the entirety of Windows 11's existence, it has been difficult to not only make it the default, but to keep it the default.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because as things update, it wants to change it back.
And all of a sudden, Edge pops up, and then it's like, hey, guess what, man? I'm your default browser again. Do you want?
I got a new version. You want to use me, right?
Of course. And no, I set my default browser a long time ago. Stop asking me this question. But it doesn't stop there, because Outlook and Visio and OneNote and all of the other Microsoft applications that run on Windows will sneakily open up your links in not your default browser, which is wrong. I've chosen my default browser. You know how I want to open links. You know exactly what you're doing because you did it in Windows 7. This was not a problem prior to this. But now all of a sudden, it is. And so, to kind of sum it up, Vivaldi basically came out in support of all of these things, giving consumers a choice, making sure that when you set a default browser, it stays the default browser. And after an update, Edge doesn't come out at you and say, hey, guess what? And when you go to download Firefox and install Firefox, it's not like when you Bing Firefox, it's not like, hey, you know who the coolest browser in the world is? Edge. It doesn't do that. It should not do that. And when you get to the Firefox webpage and you download the executable and you double click on it, and it's like, hey, you know who the coolest browser is? Not Firefox. Just keep using Edge over here. Don't do that. So, all that to say, the Digital Markets Act is looking to bring choice to the platforms, at least in the EU, and as far as the desktop is concerned, in this letter.
Right.
So, I agree with this. I would love, especially on Windows boxes that I have to use, I would love to get the choice to say, yeah, Firefox. I don't even need to see Edge at all. Ever. Just Firefox and make it the default, and I'll never have to think about it again.
Right.
That's what I do now. I just have to jump through hoops to make sure it stays that way.
I know. Yeah.
So that was a good thing.
I agree. I'm in support of that as well. I think that's pretty great. I mean, even if it, I mean, sure, Firefox, yes, that's we love that. But I mean, Brave, Vivaldi, all of those are fine choices too, and they do things a little differently, so that probably a little more privacy respecting in regards to if you're going to use a Chromium base on things. So
right. Maybe it was a little biased of me to talk about a Vivaldi open letter and then just kept saying Firefox.
Maybe, but
sorry,
I mean,
sorry,
I don't
Vivaldi.
know. But you're not wrong. It doesn't. Well, yeah, but I mean, like, sure, options are what we want. That's a lot of times why we go to Linux. But why can't we have them everywhere?
Yeah. Oh, Nate said like 100 bajillion Linux distros in
yeah, he did
in his write up. So yeah, we like options. We like to have.
We sure do.
But speaking of Firefox, speaking of the parent company Mozilla, whom everybody likes to ask, what are they doing with all that money that they get? They get billions of dollars, entire write-ups. I have an answer for you where all the money's going.
Okay. Yep.
So
I'm listening.
Back in the end of 2022, Mozilla did a study. They recently wrote about it again. And the article that was talking about it was titled, Deciding for Ourselves. 98% of people want a browser choice screen, Mozilla study finds. Now, this is before the DMA was passed. The DMA was being debated, but it hadn't been passed. Now it's been passed.
That's a crazy high number. I don't know what the sample size on that was.
Oh, trust me. This isn't just Mozilla did an internet survey.
Yeah.
They physically went out. Germany, Poland, and there's a third country that I cannot remember.
All right, but that's a lot. Yeah.
12,000 people.
Okay, that's substantial.
The lower limit to is it a good scientific study is around 2,000 people. This is 6 times that. So, Mozilla asked 12,000 people how they like to choose their browser, and as it turns out, they don't like being fed a default. 98% of people.
How about, that's a crazy high number.
Right. And so one of the big overarching questions was they wanted to find out whether or not browser choice screens affect people's decisions. And as it turns out, they don't always go for the default, but you can be super subversive about it. And one of the things that I know will happen, because you got to follow the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law, right? Just because the spirit would have you allow the consumer to make the best choice for them doesn't mean that a company like Google can't be like, well, you know what, in Android, we're going to put all these little dark choices for you so that we push you toward using Chrome. Because that's what they've been doing with Google for the past 20 years. So,
sure enough,
what they found was the design, content, and timing of the choice screen matters. So, selecting your own default before you have to open up a browser makes you more likely to select something other than that browser. So, picture yourself just starting up in Windows, not you personally, maybe someone less technical in your life. If that person has to double-click Edge to get to a different browser and download the browser and go through all the steps and all that stuff just to be able to use that browser every single time and not have to open up 2 separate browsers on I don't know what happened, but it's a different browser now. It turns out that if they're able to choose a browser before ever having to open up Edge and then do all that rigmarole, they are more likely to choose not Edge. That is huge. And
it is huge.
They did this test on Android, which meant that they didn't choose Chrome.
Yeah.
That is huge. Firefox's market share could shoot up. And that includes Vivaldi, it includes Brave, it includes Opera, it includes all the browsers you don't like, right?
Yeah, any of those, yeah.
But this is something they found. That out of 12,000 people, if you're not given a choice or given a browser to start with, you are much more likely to choose not the default. That is massive and a big part of why the DMA is so important.
It makes sense.
And it turns out, and this is where that 98% came from in the title, 98% of people out of that 12,000 said, yeah, let me just choose it. I'll pick one. It seems so simple.
It does, yeah.
Right? And the companies that would have you believe otherwise are telling you, well, no. Consumers would have paralysis. They would have that decision paralysis, and they wouldn't be able to choose. So we're just going to give them one that is the tyranny of the default.
Yeah, absolutely. They want you to stay within the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Stay within the box and never leave the ecosystem. And, well, all right. So here this goes to convenience there in a way because, keeping it with what you have in front of you is very convenient. You don't want to, you don't want to stray from that. People don't really like to, work at all. They want it given to them. So it's understandable. Like if you have just like you start off with a choice, you're starting at a different point in the map, if you will.
Exactly. And the big boys don't want to admit it, but they're not as good as they say they are. And this proves it. So the last thing that they were asking about was user satisfaction. Just, how generally, how happy are you with the choices that you made? So the choice screens resulted in better user satisfaction across a ton of metrics, including ease of setting up the device, the amount of time it took up to set up the device, and the range of settings they could customize. Now, in aggregate of 12% increased user satisfaction overall.
Wow.
So you give people a choice, and while they might be okay with what they have, 12% increased user satisfaction when they had the ability to say, I'd rather have Vivaldi. I'd rather have Firefox. I'd rather have Opera. I'd rather stay with the default. That is a choice too, and that is cool.
Yeah, that turns into internet happiness right there, folks.
Exactly. Now, if you wanted to know where all that money's going, to stuff like this, to figuring out how to make the internet better for all of us. And if you go to the blog, you'll see it.
That's what they claim, yeah. And so this is good. I mean, it's unfortunate that it probably doesn't hit hit your face enough, and that's why we're pushing it out to you.
If you go to Linux User Spaces Reddit, or if you go to Linux User Spaces Lemmy, you would see this news, or the Discord, you would see this news, and it would at least come across your feed, and you may or may not read that kind of stuff, but it's there. It's absolutely there. They're doing this work, and it's good work. Here's my soapbox, as if I weren't already on one the entire time, right?
It's okay, Leo. It's your turn. Go for it.
So here's my soapbox, but I'm going to start it out with a couple of things. The first being, yes, the money goes to social things like that. And that's all well and good. Now we know what people want. Sure. The other question that gets thrown around a lot, or the other assertion is, well, they're just not doing enough to Firefox then. Maybe if they just worked on Firefox some more. Well, Mozilla doesn't just do Firefox. They do a lot of stuff. But Firefox is one of those things. Well, this one's for you, person that says they don't work on Firefox enough. So the thing that used to be an add-on, the translations add-on. Yeah, Mozilla Translations.
It was called a first-party extension rather than a third-party extension. So it was a little more mainstream as far as an add-on, but it was an add-on, yes.
Yeah, it's like multi-account containers. That was first-party, or is first-party. The funny thing about that is that I don't think it really gives it that much more traction. Because the people I talk about...
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you're probably right.
They were like, dude, have you seen Chromium Workspaces? Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I just use multi-account
containers.
yeah, exactly.
I got you.
because it's, in my opinion, it's better. Anyway, so the translation thing that used to be a first-party extension is now, it's just in Firefox now.
It's built in, yeah.
So you can go to a website, you can auto-translate. I know what you're saying. Well, they should have had this, 50 versions. Sure, but it's here now. They are doing work to the browser. The money that you're sending to Mozilla goes to Firefox too. And it's actually really cool, and it works like pretty much every other browser. You go to a web page, it detects it's in a different language. If it's in one of the languages that it knows, the little icon pops up, you click it, click translate.
And here's the big thing that needs to be highlighted. It happens on your local machine. It doesn't go. It doesn't send all that text somewhere else to do some analysis and scrape where you've been and all of that jazz. It does it right there.
Oh man, you could say that entire part again.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Local only translations. Oh. My favorite.
So I've been using this actually for a while. This is one of the extensions that I actually installed, and I've been using it for a while. There are a few pages that I go to that are not in English, and that's the only language that I can barely know.
Yeah, right. Listen, I'm over here looking at the people in Europe and the people in Asia that know like 5 languages, and I'm like, I can barely get by in one. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Quit flexing.
Yeah. So I've been using this one for a bit. It's actually really great.
Yep. It absolutely is. So I mean, another privacy win. That's the other thing, is that it's privacy first. You don't have any idea what a lot of the other translator things are doing in the background because they don't necessarily tell you.
Nope.
Up front. And the other is we live in a Google world, as much as I don't like it. We live in a Google world, and Google Meet links be getting thrown around all the time. I have to use them for work. I get it. One thing that Firefox has not been able to do, and one of the common complaints that I hear all the time about in Firefox, is that it doesn't work well with Google this or Google that or whatever. Well, they've added video effects and background blur. Those are now available to you in Firefox. So if you were missing those, if that was a reason why you weren't using it or using it as much, that's been fixed. And just like the Wayland thing, if you haven't tried Firefox in a while, you should try it again.
Absolutely.
Because these little incremental upgrades, little fixes that get put in are not front and center on the release notes. So most of the news sites that tell you about, well, Firefox is coming out and this is what it does, don't go deep enough into the release notes to tell you this now works. Because a lot of that stuff is very personal. Those kinds of things are something that you or you and your friends do. So if you've been doing it on Chrome, Vivaldi and Brave, maybe Opera to a smaller extent, get a pass. It's time to ditch Chrome and fall in love with Firefox again.
They just make it better all the time. And so I'm right there with you. I've actually, so Vivaldi is like one of my favorites. Don't get me wrong. Got some great features of it.
It's the plasma of browsers, man. Every feature you'd ever want.
It is. I don't use all of it, but I use some of it, and I like the things that I use, and that's pretty much the only place you can get them. So I use that, but I've been using, I think, Firefox quite a bit more as of late, because it is just getting better all the time.
Yep. It absolutely is. So if you haven't tried it lately, try it again. It's really, really good.
Yeah. The other place that I've been using it, not just on my desktop, right? So I've been using it on my phone again because Leo talked me into it. And
because you can get add-ons on it.
Yeah, you can. And it was a little bit terrible there for a little while. It just kind of was real crashy.
No arguments. It was.
But it's been super solid the last little bit. And so that's pretty great experience as well.
The baked-in Firefox ad blocker is pretty good, but there's nothing like having uBlock on your phone.
I know, uBlock. Love that one. It's my favorite add-on.
So catch these, the Mozilla ones, and other great topics as they unfold on our Lemmy instance, our subreddit, our news channel, our Discord. Oh, wait, news channel on Discord. So if you haven't been, linuxuserspace.show/ I think it's right above me, so I'm going to point like this. I'm going to point like this because it's right there on the YouTube. Right here. Lemmy, Reddit, Discord, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Twitch, Twitter. It's there. Go check them out. They are a bastion of all of the dumb stuff that I say all the time. Dan says much smarter things than me.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. He said it. It's awesome. So check it out. Come join the community. Come have a chat. I think Dan and I are a very accessible pair. We like to... Yeah. We should like at least once or twice daily. Yeah, we get down in the weeds. I just helped somebody figure out how to install Zoom on their new Ubuntu install, which is super cool, man. Yeah, I did, by the way, tell them to install the Snap. I hope that was a good thing. That was a good thing, right?
It was an easy way to go.
Zoom and Snap is cool? It's not. Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Okay.
It worked for them, so I guess it was cool.
Is the Deb better? I don't know. Now I don't know.
It's probably it's a little more complicated to install, no?
Right. So, one command, easy peasy, because they asked for a command.
Yeah, and they were, you could tell they're new. They're learning.
Yep.
And so it's probably a good place to start.
Well, I like it. I absolutely like it. They, at the very least, you got Zoom. If that doesn't work very, very well for you.
It worked for them. So that's the most important thing.
Exactly. But if not, if you have troubles with it, that's what the Telegram channel's for. That's where the question was asked, and that's where I'll be, and that's where I'll keep an eye out. And if there's any issues, then I will absolutely help you install the Deb. Because, that's just what cool community people do, right?
Yep. So totally at Leo.
Yeah. When it breaks. I'm your guy.
Next up is our Reverb Focus. And starting us off, here's Stewie. So Stewie on the Gentoo check-in, he says, have either of you considered ditching GRUB? Gentoo doesn't need it if you're on EFI. And you're absolutely correct. However, as new Gentoo folks, I chose to follow the handbook, at least for the first time through. And I'm using GRUB. Certainly don't need to do that because you can totally just point the thing at whatever EFI directory you want it to boot. And that's cool. GRUB is tried and true though. So and as we talked about earlier, it's one of the GNU utilities.
It is. Of course it is. Of course it is.
So, that's a good thing, bad thing? I don't know. But, there it is. It's been around for a little bit, and it kind of works. So, I don't know. I sort of default there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think my main thing was I'm doing it in a VM first because I'm scared.
Yeah.
I don't want to, okay. I say this. This is why.
No, that's a good good way to learn.
It is. I haven't learned anything. Let me tell you why. So I had to. We're doing CDE.
We'll try to help you out, Leo.
I know. I don't think there's helping. I don't think you can. I will accept what I get, but you got to work real hard, Dan. You have been. I appreciate it. But I installed Sparky. I accidentally chose the wrong disk. I blew away Debian on accident, and
that's sad.
Yeah, it is because I was planning on keeping that Debian installed for a while, but it was to install CDE, right? Anyway, all that to say, I'm bad at things sometimes, and this is why I haven't really gone away from the handbook. I'm staying as super simple as possible. So for right now, on the VM in my sandbox, we're keeping it to GRUB. We're keeping it as simple. I even have it. It's on BIOS, man. Like old legacy style boot too.
Yeah,
I didn't even dare tread the UEFI waters just yet. But eventually it's going to be on this machine for real. If this is just secure shell right here. But when it's on this machine for real, I want to do the full UEFI thing, and I very well may skip. But I have multiple. I always have at least two going on over here, so I will at least need GRUB on the other one. And then I guess I will let the system kind of be like, oh, there's a stub here, kind of do its thing.
Right.
Yeah. So one day, Stewie, I'm not as smart as you. One day, I'll do it.
I guess we're just keeping the training wheels on for now. As we get our feet wet into the Gentoo land, just kind of keeping things simple. And yeah, I know the handbook does help you get to other solutions as well. But I think the examples sort of point out GRUB as the way, just because it is fairly popular, and so that's the path we chose.
Well, very few. What else is there? I mean, there's system deboot.
Yeah, I think system
the
deboot
end.
is...
That's the end of the list for popular things.
For sure. I think system deboot is the other one that might be mentioned or at least a way to get there in the handbook. So
because even Slackware is considering dropping Lilo because it's
and eLilo. Yeah.
There's just they're going GRUB. So
they're looking at GRUB. Yeah, that was there was a forum post on that.
Yeah, and Slackware's been Lilo for
Oh my goodness, yeah.
A while.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think GRUB is just tried and true. That's why we're there, but we'll be a little risky.
We might hack at it later. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to risk it. I mean, I'm going to blow it up. I haven't blown it up yet, somehow. I think that's because Dan's been helping me, but...
It's a long season, though, so there's plenty of time to duke it later.
We got 15 episodes of I'm going to break it. I'll just tell it.
I might very well, too, the way I'm going.
All right, so Ed, on the same Gentoo check-in, that one was pretty popular.
It was good.
So, is Gentoo like Arch? Updates all the time? Always compiling something? I think I was a little hasty with the answer on this one. Gentoo is similar to Arch, depending.
So it is rolling, though. So, yeah, updates just kind of come along. It's a slower cadence, though. Especially if you're on the stable branch. You don't always have the very, very latest. It's different. I don't know what it's like. I guess it's going to be similar to what you think of for the new OpenSUSE distribution, Slow Roll.
Oh, I know. I want to talk about that.
It's not, though, because it's continually rolling. It's just not necessarily some of the latest packages in a way. It's got a little more quality assurance, I guess, behind it. Like some of the things don't move until they're tested and ready, I guess. So it's different. I don't know how to describe it.
So maybe if there were an Arch slow roll, that would be kind of like what Gentoo stable.
I guess, yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. And you do, yes, as the updates come along, roll in, you're compiling. Unless you have the binary version of things, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's a fine way to go, unless you have a compelling need to, do that, compile without certain things or with certain flags. So
yeah. So updates all the time? I think so, because we've been doing this episode for a while. I think right now Audacity's sitting at an hour 30. So and I'm still compiling, and it's only been a week since I did updates. So there's lots to do. Lots of stuff.
I'm doing mine about once a week as well. I think that's a fine cadence to do that. Yeah.
I do an at-world update. Here's the plan. I'm doing an at-world update every episode that we sit down to record, and we're doing like fun stuff on the live streams.
Right, adding things and changing things around, yeah.
Right, so change some things up in 1 week, just update them the next, and then change some stuff, and then update them. Change it, update them. So it's going to be a cool journey. But to the question, always compiling something? Yeah,
kind of. It's a thing. Day has some comment on episode 4 of season 4 here on the telemetry stuff. As much as privacy nerds like me scream and cry, opt-out telemetry is the only type of telemetry that is actually of any use when the objective is to understand the needs of the majority.
Yep.
I think we totally agree with that. Really, seriously.
100%, because I'm that. I'm like, I don't like it. I don't want it, but I'll do it because I like you people.
Right. But like if you're going to tick it on and make it the default, then we'll get a better sample size. You're going to get a better sample size. That's what it amounts to.
Yeah.
And so that you can actually get some data that's, pretty valuable.
Yeah. And BGT in Matrix has the opposite feeling of this. But I think we kind of came to, I think we agree. As long as there's a way to opt out, as long as it's apparent, as long as they're not hiding it from you,
I agree.
If it's front and center, right?
And presented like early.
Yeah.
I think like one of the first things.
Yeah, don't suck up my data yet. Let me choose.
Right. Don't get too far down and like get you messed up, if you will, thinking about something else and then present that screen. No, put it right out there in the front.
Right.
Like first thing.
I agree. And I think there's a middle ground to be had. And if we're going opt out, I think that's the middle ground. Be very upfront with it. Put it right in front of your face. Do not let anybody go on without here it is. So
yeah. And going back to what Fedora was talking about. I know I mentioned this in the episode, but I'll mention it again because I think there was someone that was like questioning. They actually did publish the code, if you will, of how they intended to roll that out. And you could set your own server up and just change the URL so you could see the data that was getting pushed there.
I would go one further. That's cool. I like that you can set up your own server, but that's not something that regular folks can do.
It's not super visible, right? I get it. Yeah.
I would say that let someone get, even if it's just a text dump in a terminal, let someone see the information they're about to send. If they care enough to click on the buttons and see it or whatever, give someone a dump.
Or maybe just a log file that you could go, peruse when you wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That would be great. And maybe you can do that. I don't know. I haven't tested it, so.
Right. So if I can see it, and I think that was another one of BGT's points, like let me see it. Like, and don't make it hard. I don't want to set up a server.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think they were trying to intentionally hide anything, and I think that was the point that I was making was there are ways to make it visible, and they've kind of got it out there. Whereas I would say a lot of telemetry, just about everywhere else, they don't present any of it to you in any sort of format.
Even if you decided on an iOS device that like the explicit choice you have to make, opt in, opt out, whatever. It's not like you get to go in and see what you just sent. It just it is what it is, my man, and that's
that's scary.
Cool. That's kind of why I say no. Actually, I haven't really thought about it.
I don't know what you're sending, so I don't know what I'm agreeing to.
Exactly. Let me see it. Just be as transparent as possible, and I think Fedora was doing that. I think they were 99% of the way there. There's some things that you could tweak, but that's what the conversation is about, and I think that's healthy to have. But I do think opt out is the way to go if you actually care about what people think. So Gnome on our first Gentoo live stream said the profile will not install GNOME. So a little backstory here. So in the live stream, so if you listen to the show but you don't watch the live stream live or check it out on YouTube after the fact, I had a question. I didn't know, and I think generally it was a little opaque. So in Gentoo, when you're getting ready for GNOME, you choose a profile, and it says like GNOME, and you can choose the GNOME one, which relies on OpenRC, which is what I'm doing, or you could choose GNOME System D, which relies obviously on System D, which is what I'm not doing. So my question was, should I choose GNOME, and then once I choose that profile and then like recompile at world, I'll just have GNOME then, right? That was my initial thought. We very quickly found out that is not the case. You don't need that.
You don't.
Or that's not all you have to do.
You do have to do that. It does get you some things so that you can compile GNOME.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And as GNOME pointed out, it will recompile the entire system in preparation for GNOME, but I do have to go in and emerge AV GNOME base GNOME after I do that update. But the reason that I wanted this feedback in here was not necessarily because, I just wanted to bring up the fact that when I chose that profile, that was like 30 minutes before the end of the stream. And then we kind of tinkered with a couple of things, verified a couple of things, and then we did the at-world update. And it just kept updating until the end of the stream. And I was like, cool. Well, we leave on a high note. I didn't break anything. It's all compiling. Everything's good to go. And then we cut off the stream, and then I check on it a couple hours from then, and it's still compiling. And, oh, wow. So it's still compiling. Okay. Well, I take a shower, get ready for bed, check on it right before I hop into bed. Still compiling. Okay, cool. So I hop into bed, I go to sleep, wake up for work the next morning up at 8, still compiling.
Yeah.
Whoa. So for context, we stopped the stream at 8 p.m. I wake up at before 8. So 8 a.m. still compiling. So we're at about a little over 12 hours.
12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does not finish until my lunch at 12:30. So this
just a day and a half.
This was a 16-hour compile. Not to compile GNOME, but to compile the things to get
prerequisites.
Yeah. So there's more to be done. There's more to be done. But GNOME, thank you for letting me know all that. Because at the time I did not know that was the case. But now I know. And so tune in for the next live stream, because that's what I'm going to be doing. We're going to be installing the GNOME things. And you know what?
So,
getting off topic, because we're just going to be compiling the whole time.
Yeah. So, but he's got his good foundation, so we're ready to go.
Ready to go.
So next up, Reen. And if I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. It's all Leo's fault.
Yes, I said we're going with Reen. Sorry,
and that's where we're at. And
sorry
so we're good. It says Pi there. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Leo and Dan. Just discovered your YouTube channel yesterday. I watched the Pi history video and want to make some notes. I missed a little bit of history about the ARM and RISC origins, particularly Acorn, Archimedes, etc.
Yeah, I want to say I brushed up to Acorn.
Yeah.
But
boy, there's a lot of history. So yeah,
and I think Raspberry Pi actually that history was one of the longer ones.
It sure was.
But there's just so much that we have to cut to keep normal. Maybe one day we turn this thing, or maybe do a side project where, it's one of those like really cool produced history shows. One day.
Maybe we'll get there.
Archimedes, we definitely, right across.
Yeah,
Archimedes,
we're right over to that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
that is something. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if we're to touch on it again, if we ever get back there again, maybe. I don't know.
I keep trying.
Maybe
I keep trying to go backwards.
I know.
Dan's like, "There's more to do," and I'm like, "You're right.
Boy, there is so much.
You're absolutely right. We should do more."
Goes on to say, I also missed mentioning the role of David Braben and Sophie Wilson in the creation and design process of Raspberry Pi. I feel like we, again, just kind of skimmed the surface on some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then further to go on says, do you already know the Slackware on ARM project by Stuart Moses Winter? He is doing this since Acorn RISC PC days, and he also made a Raspberry Pi port and a brilliant YouTube video about it. Yeah, no, so you got to go further back in our history.
Actually, yes.
And pull out the Slackware episode, because that was, well, we weren't calling it community focus back then exactly, but that was our community focus for then.
Mm-hmm.
Was the podcast that Slackware group puts together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you gotta roll the clock back a little bit further, and we did talk about that. Further to go on here, Gnome, are you worshiping the purest form of evil? And then a wink.
Yeah, well, before we say the last thing that is probably true, yeah, for as much as, you know what? No, yes, absolutely. For as much as folks may not like it, GNOME is, as far as Linux is concerned, as far as the Linux desktop is concerned, the industry standard, at least for right now. And when I say, hey, do you run Windows? You know, you can picture in your mind what I'm talking about. When you run Mac OS, you can picture in your mind what I'm talking about. And to someone that only runs Windows and Mac, when you say, do you run Linux? I'm going to bet that if there's a picture in their mind of something, it's GNOME. And that's, I worship no, but it is, it is the list.
I'm going to throw something out there, Leo, and it's not in the script. So we just spent probably 20, 30 minutes talking about Firefox. And do you know what the biggest market share for browser is?
Not Firefox?
It's not Firefox. No, sorry,
absolutely
buddy.
Not. No.
So I don't know that just because GNOME is the most popular desktop out there makes it the best choice.
No, not the best. Just the one that's...
You might be onto something here with the purest form of evil. And so they go on to say really smart people do use LXQ. So there we go. Now we got it.
How dare you?
And further go on to say, my setup at home is Raspberry Pi OS Bullseye 32-bit on a Raspberry Pi 400.
Okay, pretty standard.
Samsung Evo 870 256 gig SSD.
Now we're getting special.
On a StarTech USB 3.0, which I use as my daily driver for everything.
As your daily driver?
That's pretty darn awesome. And it seems like it probably is a decently solid setup. And yeah, like that's cool.
Wow. Okay. Well, this begs the question. How good is that keyboard? Is it a really good one?
Actually, it does seem pretty good. I've only seen them in the store. I do not have a Raspberry Pi 400 myself, although it's kind of on my list.
Because I'm one of those weirdos that I
don't know if it's that good.
No. I gotta have a good keyboard, and I'm okay with.
Oh, I think it's decent though. I think it is decent.
But I'm also a weirdo that thinks that the framework keyboard feels very premium. I don't know how many blogs out there are like, yeah, the framework keyboard's fine. It's fine. It's a mobile keyboard. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you've felt it.
As far as laptops go, it's pretty good, right?
You've felt... Okay. Because I must be weird. Because people on ThinkPads are like, it's the best keyboard I've ever used in my life. And I'm like, is it though? Because every time I try to use a ThinkPad keyboard, I am so inaccurate. And I'm talking like, I use those cheapo $9.99 Dell crap keyboards, the ones with the little squishies, and I don't like it at all. But what I can say about those is that I'm not inaccurate. I can
True.
type, I can touch, I don't have to look.
Spacing and travel are the keys to that, I feel like.
The keys. Yeah, I get you.
I know.
I see you. But right, so on crappy Dells, on the framework, on a Mac, on like anything, I'm very accurate. But on a ThinkPad keyboard, I can't hack it. Like words get split up and squished together. I cannot be accurate on a ThinkPad key. It's the worst part about a ThinkPad. And maybe I didn't use it at the right time. Maybe this is a T450S. It's not like it's a bad model, and I can't do it. So that was where the question came from. It must.
That's a valid question, but I've not heard of anything that says anything negative about it.
Cool.
So I mean, I'd be interested to try it out too. So that's
because for the longest time you could only get the Pi 400. That's all you could get.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And I was very close to buying one. But this might convince me. I might do it.
And I think they do have some performance enhancements over the regular.
They do,
Raspberry Pi
because
4, there's a reason to get one.
There's better thermals. It's already faster. Like out of the box, it's faster. You don't even have to overclock it. It's faster. So, yeah, I think I might. Reen, why? How dare you? You've done it. I might do it. Okay.
But they go on to say that their mobile device is a Fujitsu Lifebook S760 with Debian 11.7, 32-bit. That looks cute, of course.
You're a Debian person. That's so cool.
That is cool. So 292 megabytes of RAM idle after cold boot, by the way. That's pretty awesome stuff.
That's slim. If I didn't accidentally nuke my Debian off of this laptop, I'd still be a Debian user. By the next episode, I'll be a Debian user again, but I accidentally nuked it, so.
Yeah, I still have, I was smart. I took my drive out before I went and did stuff.
We've established I am not smart.
So I still have mine, and I plan to put it back in eventually. I just haven't done it yet. So, final statement here is, have you tried RISC-OS? Officially listed in the imager. And we haven't. And it's something that I think we need to do.
I want to. I absolutely want to. It's on the list of things to do, but not yet. There are a few other links that we didn't talk about that we're going to have in the show notes that you can check out, like Plan 9's Foundation website and EasyOS and Wi-Fi Sheep. There's some really cool stuff. So, if you haven't done it yet, look right here, right. I don't know where the camera's at. Like here-ish, right above me, there are links. Go to the links, but what's not up there is the email. If for some reason you're a curmudgeon like me and you like email because it's a simple protocol, and I mean,
it's the original federated protocol.
It is. You think about federation, email was the first. You can email us at contact@linuxuserspace.show, or just visit the website, linuxuserspace.show. You can send us a direct message from the website itself, or you can find all the other links that are right up there.
So, another focus session here, Leo. This is community focus. And, I probably, a little hindsight, probably should have had this focus going into our Silverblue episode, but I wasn't that smart and didn't get it organized well enough.
You know why? Because Silverblue is immutable. You just can't mute it. Therefore, we're still talking about it.
That's true. Yeah, no, it was pretty great time. It was good. It was better than I expected. Let me put it that way. So, because we were talking about all the immutable stuff, I really want to draw some focus to George Castro, who is making some great YouTube content and is working on UBlue and Universal Blue. But his thoughts and views are pretty great around the immutable desktops and the tools that surround that. So, George hasn't always used those, but is now and has some good guidance, I think.
We didn't fully forget, because I did mention that George Castro. I watched his Micro OS and how it differs from Silverblue video kind of in the lead up to the history. So, I
might have tossed some links in there too that went to some of those pages, but we just didn't focus on it. So here we are.
As far as visibility goes, George Castro is probably one of the most visible people that is pushing forward the immutable lifestyle. And I love it. I absolutely love that this could very well be your Linux in a few years. Now, the Ubuntus and the Rels might not be there yet, and probably the Debians either, but the derivatives of those are really going to start leaning this direction because of the ease of use.
He talks about some tips that make it easier for you, too, and I definitely picked up on some for myself.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, learning about Micro OS and how it was a little different than Silverblue was absolutely fantastic. I mean, and I don't know, I feel like he'd be cool guy to hang out with and have beer with because he seems very interesting. I could listen for a while.
Absolutely, yeah. He's been around a bit. He knows a thing or two. So definitely, you could pick up some tips and tricks there. So George Castro, I'll put the links in the show notes. Got a YouTube and some other places.
All right, last focus. Gentoo Focus. Okay, so we got to recap. We talked about it a little bit in the feedback, but got to recap here. Okay, so the way that this has been going, and I think I really like the way that this has kind of been fleshing out, is we do all these weird changes in the live stream, which happen a week before we record. And come about
so it's like you'll get the live stream notifications the day after this episode drops. Just a hint,
right? So when this episode drops the next day, we're gonna go make some more changes, and then in the next episode we'll talk about how that worked out. And so this is the result of the last time we decided to make changes, and we learned a few things. So okay, we got the GNOME profile selected. That was where we were in the first Gentoo Focus. I had gotten to a compiled system. We could log into it. We could SSH into it. I could make changes to it all remotely. And that was fantastic. So we compiled that system once, and then we waited. And then we came up to the last live stream, which is the whole purpose of this was to get GNOME on the system, or at least compiling to get onto the system. But little did I know, did not know that just selecting the GNOME profile would not install GNOME. Okay, it turns out that what we did on the live stream was we chose the GNOME profile, and then we kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, kind of figured it out, but we ended up compiling at world with the new use flag, and I just took the flag off. I meant to write it down, and I forgot to write it down. But there was another flag that we took off when I started compiling for today. Because, by the way,
probably the update one, maybe. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, well, I don't want to interrupt it. It's compiling back there.
Yeah, I don't remember what we took off. I just don't.
I'll come back with another update, and we'll definitely talk about it on the live stream. But we took off a couple of flags, and now we're currently right now at the start of the episode. I started compiling all over again, so we'll have updates. Will be fresh for tomorrow to do, or not tomorrow for the. Well, yeah, I guess technically, if you're hearing this tomorrow,
right,
we'll be doing the live stream.
Fast forward,
yeah. And then we'll talk about that a little bit more. But that update, as soon as we updated, new use and all that at world, it took 16 hours to compile all of the things that are needed to get on the system before we installed GNOME. So
that might have been a little longer than like even old Tater Top over there took. Just saying.
But I have a reason for that.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
But so that took 16 hours. We're gonna get GNOME on there on the next live stream. So if you're hearing this
All right.
at normal time, you're not early access or anything. If you're hearing this normal time, tomorrow. And it was mostly my fault that it took 16 hours. It probably shouldn't have taken 16 hours. Probably closer to 10-ish, maybe.
That sounds about right.
Right,
Yeah.
because...
Little overnight compile, and you're ready in the next morning.
I sure did. I went to bed, and I woke up, and it was still going. But it's mostly my fault because I limited jobs in an abundance of caution, because in the Gentoo handbook, it was like, about a gig for your system, about a gig for a job. And I only gave 2 gigs to the, I think I only gave 2 gigs to the system, maybe. Because I was like, it's Gentoo, how much could you need?
Well, it's like a job. So like if you have 2 cores, I think you want to limit your jobs but you have some limited RAM in addition to that. So you don't want to, have too many jobs going.
Yeah, I've got 2
because,
cores.
like your processor, in a way, your processor can get ahead of the amount of RAM that you have, and then you can get yourself locked up.
Exactly.
And you didn't want to do that.
Yeah. So to recap, I've had 2 processors in a VM. It's all in a VM because I'm scared.
Right.
I have 2 processors.
It's a good place to learn.
And 2 gigs of RAM. The system took, a couple hundred gigs of RAM. The first compile took less than I expected. It didn't take a full gig of RAM. It took like 700. So we were barely over a gig of RAM. And by the end of the live stream, I was saying, maybe I should bump this up to jobs 2 before the next live stream. And so that's what I'm going to do. Right. We're going to try jobs 2, but this is also going to be the live stream where we're compiling GNOME. So this could go horribly wrong.
And it could go just as long as it did last time, but you'll probably get twice as many packages compiled in that amount of time.
One of the I found out later on, because I put this out on Mastodon, that Rust takes a while.
That was one that really chewed up my system, just so you know.
Yeah.
I ended up going to binary on that.
Well, I should, and I probably maybe one day, but the whole point of Gentoo is to compile it all. So
you don't start there.
Yeah.
That's not where you start.
I'm going to compile Rust, and I've already run into the thing that people that are like, I'm going to do the Rust binary, run into before they decide they're going to do the binary. I did it, and it took hours. So we're going, next live stream, we're going jobs 2. I'm not going to change the RAM yet, but but I'm going to go jobs 2, and I think that's probably going to take us up to the peak. What I don't want, though, I'd prefer to keep swap to a minimum. I have 2 gigs of swap on the system.
I think it's good to have it there, because in case you get into the situation where things start to run away a little bit, you want that, right?
Right.
But you're right. You don't want to be pressuring it a lot for a lot of different reasons. It's reading writes on your system. And so you don't want to do that if you can avoid it.
If I were running Gentoo on a hard disk, this would be a different story. But I'm not. I'm running Gentoo on the SSD that I have in my Proxmox machine that also runs other things I would also like to not explode. So
so you don't want to be thrashing your disk.
Right. Just to, I don't want to lower its life expectancy or anything like that. So if I see during this first GNOME compile that we're really thrashing the disk, maybe I'll back up and I'll just accept that it's going to take a little while to compile. And that's fine, because we're going a few days between, needing to touch.
We don't need it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's not like a actual system that's probably going to have more processor, more RAM, better disk all around, right?
Now, one of these days, this guy right here is going to be actually running the Gentoo system that I want to be dealing with on a day-to-day. But until that happens, I want to try to keep that thrashing down to a minimum.
Yeah.
I'll buy a whole nother SSD just for this guy.
That makes sense.
I mean, they are actually probably...
They're cheap.
They're pretty
really
dirt cheap. I get a whole 128 gig disk just for... I don't even think...
Well, you can't
even buy those anymore. I think 256 is probably as little as they get anymore.
What was these? I bought these cheap. These are cheap. These are 256. That's what they were.
Exactly. You can't buy them smaller than that.
Yeah. Take a look at that.
What is that? A T-Force? T-Force Vulcan Z?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What is that? Like $25?
20 maybe. I don't remember. They were like crazy cheap. I bought a couple of them just to have around to stuff in machines when I don't want to wreck maybe, what I got going on there, but I want to test something out. I throw one of these in there and then swap it back out later maybe.
Exactly.
So I bought a couple of those just on a lark and they were cheap.
Smart. That's probably what I'll do. I mean, yeah. I'll just get me a disk just for Gentoo so I can have 16. Oh, actually, this machine has 20 gigs of RAM. So I'll need.
Oh, yeah, man.
I'll need 20 if I want to hibernate, right? I want 20 gigs of swap.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be plenty for it. They're at a pretty good price right now. That's fantastic. But this build is temporary. Don't want to thrash that disk too much. So we're going to play this one by ear and kind of jobs 1, jobs 2, kind of figure out how it's going to go. But right now, I've got a pretty good functioning system. It's been stable. I've been able to SSH into it whenever I need to. It's always responsive. The past couple of live streams, it's been a good system. Now, I can't say I've been doing a whole lot with it yet, but we're just not to that point.
Right.
So when we get there,
I can say I have been doing some things with mine.
That's right.
Yeah, no, so I grabbed it the other day when my battery was dying on my normal laptop that I normally use. And so I didn't want to plug in. So I brought that back into the office, plugged it in here, and then I grabbed Tatertop. And amazingly, the battery lasts pretty well on that thing still, even though it's ancient. And so I grabbed it and I watched some YouTube videos. I feel like I loaded up something else that was probably needed the DRM stuff potentially. Whoa. I don't even remember what I might have, but I definitely watched YouTube for quite a little while on the battery, and it worked. It's that thing's no speed demon, but it worked fine. It was a pretty good experience.
The power of Linux. It's fantastic.
Breathing a little life back into some ancient tech.
You just have to spend 60 watts for 12-ish hours to compile Plasma to get there.
It's true, but once you're there, it's a solid system and it works pretty decent.
I forget who I was talking to. Oh no, it was Eric Adams. We were talking about what the point is about running a system like Gentoo and Slackware.
That's still a good question, and we're checking on that all season long.
Yeah, and I'm really cozying up to that. All of the performance that you gain with a Gentoo, it's not free. You pay it up front. You pay it up front in compiling your software for specifically your hardware, so that when you, the human, are using it, you may even be able to perceive a better performance day to day in everything that you do. But you paid for it.
Yeah.
You paid for it up front.
I would say the other cost there is you and your labor in doing some maintenance. That doesn't come free either. But yeah, you gain some knowledge and it gets easier along the way. Yep, absolutely.
That's my focus with all of this Gentoo stuff, because I think I'm running headlong into it with eyes shut. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to run into the things that mess me up.
Me too. Yeah. Essentially, I'm running the testing, version, even though I'm told that gets a little QA before things land in there. Even it's still a little riskier. Let's face it.
Sure.
Some of these things are pretty new still. So even me, I'm trying to bump into some of the things too, and I'm kind of not. It's working.
Yeah. See, isn't it frustrating when you
I can't break it when I want to,
right.
But when it's broken, I can't get it fixed.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point is that I'm trying to shake the trees so hard that apples hit me in the face, and then they're just falling around me, and I'm like, They told me apples would hit me in the face. What's going wrong here? Yeah.
They all landed in the bucket, darn it.
I know. Exactly. So I don't know. That's a testament to software QA. That's a testament to the handbook. That's a testament to just the people that surround the project, that make the project what it is. And it's so good.
So some takeaways that I've gotten here is yes, you can choose your own adventure, but the package management tools really kind of do help you a ton.
Yeah.
A ton. It does a lot of the work for you. It asks you some questions and you've got to make some decisions, but ultimately it does it. It does the work.
Yeah. Well, the last time I updated, and this may be the thing, this may be the turning point. It said I had to go in and configure some configuration files.
Yep. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't do that. And
I've done.
I just ran another update. So
okay, well, I've done that a couple of times, and depending on the thing, because you'll get merge conflicts sometimes if you don't make some configuration changes, and it'll tell you that. And so I did so a few times, depending, but it gives you guides. It tells you what to do.
Okay. Well, so if this doesn't burst into flames after this, I'll make sure to go in. Well, actually, I'll save them for the live stream. We'll go through those configuration, whatever conflicts, and see if we can't fix them, and then we'll slap GNOME on there. That's the whole.
Yep.
That's the whole point. I've been having fun.
All right. So next time, we're going to talk about the history of CDE, or the Common Desktop Environment. That's a good one. And so far, I did manage to get it installed even a couple of times. The original CDE, not the newfangled.
Not NSCDE.
Not so common. Which is also something I want to try before we do the episode, so we can do a little compare and see where it's not a port, but kind of a futuristic, I guess.
Oh, so it's got more features or something.
I don't know. I need to see the differences.
We'll
What's
find
the difference?
out.
What? So that's something that I have to try yet.
Okay.
But ultimately, we're going to give some history of that and talk about our experiences and maybe even the differences between the two.
Cool.
Yeah. So in between shows, you can catch us on Twitter, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Discord, all those places. Give us some suggestions. Talk about the Gentoo and how we're holding it wrong. On our subreddit or on Lemmy, we got a forum even there where you can kind of join the conversation and talk to us. Give us all the ideas, and you can catch all the links and show notes on linuxuserspace.show. So, Leo, where can we find you?
Of course, you can find me over on the Twitter? ?
Yeah, X.
You said it, not
Bird?
me.
X-Bird thing?
Yeah, the bird thing. At Leo Chavez. You can also find me at Leo Chavez at mastodon.social. I mean, mastodon.social. And
you can find me at KC2BAZ on the
bird thing.
And then you can find me at KC2BAZ at mastodon.social. Join us in 2 weeks when we return to the Linux user space.
Bye.
Bye now. So, here's some highlights that you probably don't realize that are GNU things. And
it came with the receipts. Yeah.
Yeah. So, DD Rescue, that is crazy popular. People use that a lot. That is a GNU thing. The other Bash, Bash. So Bash, your Bash shell, that's fairly GNU supported. Or at least the one we use. So obviously GIMP, that's the GNU image manipulation project, right?
Right.
So obviously very GNU.
Ooh, I know one. It's not anymore, but it used to be GNOME.
GNOME, yeah.
Started out as a GNU project.
It did, yep. But some other lower level things, Gawk. So.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That is. What else have we got? Less. I use Less as my pager everywhere.